if I want to do the real work I'm meant to do in the world, I have to be 100% who I am.
Right.
I need to wholly embrace this and show up as the person I am. And so the name and the coining of being dubbed the Oracle happened at a retreat like something like this where we're all together and I was sharing some insights and one of the person turns to me and they're like, oh, you're like an Oracle. Because I happen to, if you have noticed, look a little bit like the Oracle from the Matrix. And that's what hit his mind. And then I said and heard, yeah, I'm the Oracle on purpose. Not only that was all this happening on purpose, but that I was able to help people see and follow their purpose.
Yeah.
And then I realized much later that, it's not you, me, that is here on purpose. It's you, humanity, that's here on purpose.
Oh, I love that.
And I was like, now I get it.
Yeah.
Now this is beyond me. This is me helping more and more people across the world in any way I can to find their purpose and follow it.
Hey, you guys, and welcome back to The Psychic Within. Now, I have been doing an interview series with CEOs and founders, and this interview I'm very excited for. I met this beautiful woman about 4 months ago, and as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh my God, I know this woman. I'm sure we've connected before in other lives, and I have just absolutely enjoyed speaking with her. And I know you guys are going to absolutely enjoy her as well. So I'd like to introduce to you Lia Dunlap. She is the Oracle on Purpose. And I'm going to allow her to explain to you guys exactly who she is and what she does. So welcome so much. I'm so glad you are joining me here.
Oh my gosh, Carrie, I'm so excited. I really had the same experience when I met you. I was like, oh man, kindred souls for sure.
Yes.
So I am the Oracle on Purpose. It's great that we were talking about that before. Like, am I the Oracle on Purpose? Or is that my business? Yes, and yes is the answer. So as an Oracle, I am an intuitive guide for my women founders and entrepreneurs that I work with. And also, because I did two things growing up and going through my business life, I also help them, coach them around their businesses. I have sales, marketing, operations background. But the secret has always been the Oracle and the ability to have those divine messages delivered for myself, for the people that I work with and work around. So I've been doing this now for 31 years this year.
It's crazy.
Which is like, I started when I was like 5.
Impressive. Of course you did.
Yeah, right? I was right on it. So I think the biggest thing for me when people ask like, what is an Oracle? What's the difference between an Oracle and a psychic?
Yeah.
I get that a lot too, is that for me, the thing that I just know for myself, like I have to say, like for me, this is the experience. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Is that it's always about receiving a message and sharing a message.
Yeah.
It's less typically about trying to psychically divine things literally on purpose, but to let that message come through and trust that the message that's coming through is for them to be on purpose, to help them to evolve purposefully in their lives and businesses. Yeah. And that was kind of my through line. That's my genius, my sweet spot, if you will. So I loved when we connected. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like us kindred spirits in a way that I love people that have a psychic gift. I also believe, as you do, that everyone has their own psychic ability. And for me, it's not so much about training or raising that up in people as much as it is about supporting them where they are. And offering those messages and gifts as needed.
Yeah. And I love that you do that. I know we had this conversation a little bit earlier today. We've had so many conversations. But I love that you do that because I believe, and you can tell me if you agree with this, that we have our gifts and we get our gifts for a very specific reason. And there's something so profound that we're supposed to do with them. But a lot of times people can get sidetracked by what other people are doing or what's the best thing, society-wise to do. But you really do lean into exactly what the Oracle is asking of you, what that purpose is.
Exactly. And the idea of leaning into that purpose is that exactly what you just talked about. It's just so important that people realize, like, when you are doing what you just said, when you're looking at other people and thinking, I'm not as good as, or I'm not, my wisdom is as wise as this other person, you're giving that power away. A big part of that comes from comparison.
Yeah.
And I like to say comparison is a thief of joy.
Yeah.
And
I like that.
And as you probably also know as well, for me, when I'm giving intuitive gifts and insights for people, the one commonality is we are meant to be living our lives in joy. We are
Yes.
meant to be living a prosperous, abundant, magical, wonderful life. Yeah. And getting this inclination to share with people what those messages are is so that they're living their unique purpose. Mm-hmm. Right? The uniqueness of their purpose cannot be denied. Yeah. And when we do try to like compare to other people, the reason oftentimes that fails, I would say, just to be generous, 99.9% of the time, is because we're comparing ourselves to someone else's version of their story. Yeah. And the sad part is we don't even know if they're happy with their story.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true.
We so pretend that they're happy with it. And that we want that, so we were going to do what they do. But it's like, the reality is the best you can be is the you were meant to be. And that's the beauty of the work that I do.
That's profound, because we all know that. Like, and we all know that social media is not necessarily real. And people will just say things. But, like, to actually get it in that perspective of, like, we don't even know if they actually like their story. Like, or like what they're doing. That's so profound. That's big.
Yeah. It's a great opportunity, I think, to pause and look at, like, where those stories are inside of us, mm-hmm. like where we're perpetuating the idea that someone's outside is better than our inside. Yeah. And that somehow having what they have is going to make, even if they are happy, is going to make us as happy as they are. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that was you and I were talking about that before, but, like people talking about like people winning the lottery and things like that. And this idea that, oh, well, that's going to make me happy. Mm-hmm. Because it made someone else happy. Right. Or and even thinking that somehow there's something outside of you that's actually going to do the trick, mm-hmm. which again, like you said, people hear that all the time, but there is an experiential piece of it that we lose when we don't tap into who we really are. Because once we know that, then we can, if we're going to compare something, let's compare it to our own unique essence. Yeah. Does it align with that? Yes or no? Yeah. And when you start doing that, then you're less distracted. Mm-hmm. And you're also less dissatisfied by what your experiences show you. Yeah, that's so beautiful. So true. Speaking of aligning with what you're supposed to be doing, how did you get into this? How did you discover your gifts? Have you always had them? So give me a little bit of insight. Tell me a little bit of that story. As far as my gift, as far as being an oracle and having this intuitive gift, I have indeed had it my entire life. I grew up in a family, though, where this kind of information, like anything quote unquote woo-woo, was like a complete, like not even in the mindset of anybody that I grew up with or my family. I happen to be adopted, so the joke is like definitely not a part of this family all the time. But part of that was because I was getting all this information. I was having these conversations that I shouldn't have, things I shouldn't know, and coming across as like this person who knew everything. Mm-hmm. And then that was frowned upon as I was growing up, right? Because that's not how you talk to adults, right? Apparently, yeah, so if true. If you're 6 or 7 years old, and until I was about 14, and I had an experience at 14 that really shook me and made it very clear that this wasn't an accident. That these things I was experiencing and hearing and seeing and feeling were a real part of my experience, a real part of my life. So I was 14 when I saw my first full body apparition appear in my room in the middle of the night. It happened to be a man. And I say all of that because if I were, quote unquote, a normal teenager, right, that would cause, and I've probably, some of you are probably having a panic attack in your own self right now, except that I felt completely calm. Mm-hmm. And the sense of calm that hit me was so profound. And like I could describe him to a T right now to you. That's how clear it was. And I was like, oh, and what that did, aside from just kind of open that gateway to me, was it verified and validated. And I'm sure a lot of your clients as well have that validation, is to be like, oh, this thing I'm experiencing, this thought, this insight, this idea, this daydream idea or vision, it's coming from a real place. Yes. And that was my first like connection to like, oh, this is really real for me. And at that same time, in that same moment, I got this call, like clearing like voice in my head from the oracle that said, you are here on purpose. That was the tone. That was the energy. And it just, everything else that I was struggling with and as a teenager kind of dropped away, and I fell asleep that night. And that was like the pivotal moment of my beginning of my journey of like embracing this part of my life. However, I went off and tried to make the family proud. And so I went off into the corporate world, and I was in sales and marketing and advertising and operations and all the things you should do. All the things I was supposed to do, like a good, and I got married. Like I did all the things. I was checking all the boxes all along on the side. I was sneaking around and going to like women's retreats and And, so it really became a point, probably, to be honest, over 15 years ago when it kind of came to an impasse. And it's like, I can no longer live in both worlds. I really had to choose. And the universe said, okay, well, if you're not going to choose because I'm tapping you on the shoulder, I'm going to give you a big 2x4 moment that says it's enough. It's over. You have to stop trying to chase these two sides of yourself. So I had an experience where I thought I was having a heart attack, had to get taken out of work, couldn't go to work anymore. So when I was recovering, it really became clear, like, that's enough.
Yeah.
It's time now. Wow. You need to do this work full time. And so I did. So I hung up my shingle, like, here I am, world. And, the great thing about that was that even as hard as it was to start, like, completely fresh and like a whole new endeavor, it never felt more right to be doing that work. And so the more I allowed myself to express that part of me and lean into it, the better my experience was, but the better my client's experience was. And that's when the real validation came. And that's when it's like, okay, there's no turning back. If I want to do the real work I'm meant to do in the world, I have to be 100% who I am. I need to wholly embrace this and show up as the person I am. And so the name and the coining of being dubbed the Oracle happened at a retreat, like something like this, where we're all together and I was sharing some insights. And one of the person turns to me and they're like, oh, you're like an Oracle. Because I happen to, if you have noticed, look a little bit like the Oracle from the Matrix. And that's what hit his mind. And then I said and heard, yeah, I'm the Oracle on purpose. Not only that was all this happening on purpose, but that I was able to help people see and follow their purpose.
Yeah.
And then I realized much later that, it's not you, me, that is here on purpose. It's you, humanity, that's here on purpose.
Oh, I love that.
And I was like, now I get it.
Yeah.
Now this is beyond me. This is me helping more and more people across the world in any way I can to find their purpose and follow it.
Wow, that's huge. And I think it's really powerful, and it speaks a lot that you got the message as a 14-year-old. That is a lot for a 14-year-old to take on and to have. Did you remember it from when, was it always in the back of your mind for all of those years?
Yeah, I definitely felt like it was in the back of my mind, but I think it was the way that I interpreted it. Because again, like, remember, nobody in my family, I had no one around me that knew anything about anything holistic, anything that would be considered, non-traditional. And so I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. Minus my friends in high school, which is, I don't necessarily suggest that.
Right. It's high school.
Yeah, it's high school. But there was that specific phrase stuck with me. But you're right. I just kept putting it on my shoulders. Like somehow I was meant to do some great work. And while that's true, the nuanced version of that when I got it was, because along with that was this vision of me opening all these cages, rushing down a rainbow of light and opening cages and just setting people free.
It's so true. People are in cages.
I know. And I was just like opening all their cages. And I was like, and it was a consistent thing. It came back to me over the years, multiple times. And I was in, the hills above the Mary Magdalene caves in France. And it came back to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, all of these dots suddenly fell into place. And I was like, I get it. That's the you.
Right.
That's the what. And now the how is get out there and do the work.
Yeah.
So from that perspective and with that mindset. And so, yeah, I think it was always there, but it definitely shifted over the last few years.
Now, has your family been more open to the fact that, they know you're the Oracle, right?
Oh.
Or no? I don't mean your husband and son.
Thank you. Okay, so this is a great story. Quickly. So the long and short of it, the short side of that is no.
Okay.
My my adopted family.
They don't know?
They quote unquote know. Like it's out there. I'm not like hiding it or anything.
Right. You have social media.
They just don't get it, so they just ignore it. It doesn't exist.
It's like it doesn't
My
exist.
husband has a business, we have another business.
Yeah.
And whenever they meet, they ask how his business is going.
Like, really? They don't even say, how is the business going?
No.
Oh, interesting.
So they're think it's just like they don't know what to say or what to do about it. So we just kind of, we're on that footing, like, that's nice. You know?
Wow.
But I always thought my husband knew, like when we first met, because we've been together for 30 years now.
Yeah.
So I thought he knew. So the first day that I was telling you about that guy telling me I was the Oracle at that event, I called him and I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to just come out. I'm going to be all about it. And I'm talking to him and there's nothing on the other end of the line. So I'm thinking like, oh, my cell phone's going out or something. So I'm like, babe, can you hear me? And he's like, what? And I'm like, you can't hear me? And he said, no, I hear you. What are you talking about? Oops. And I was like, we've been together for a year. Like, what? You don't know? And I think we've been together for like 10 years. And he's like, no, I had no idea.
Oh,
he said, I thought you were just really smart. Like you always knew the answers to
you're
things.
just really smart.
I just thought you were a really smart person. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And so I didn't know that I wasn't out.
To him.
Right?
Wow.
Even to him. And here I'm thinking, of course, because I'm always telling you like the things like do this or do that or whatever was going on. And so that was kind of eye-opening too, like how much even in that I had this mask on, right? And was kind of still getting into the groove of like expressing it fully as myself.
Yeah. And how much you recognize it and you see it, but maybe you're not actually speaking about it. And there's not that clarity there. There's not that like, that's not the ownership of I am the oracle on purpose.
Right. And that was it. That was the turning point. And the commitment of that too. Of like, okay, so if I am it and I'm being it, how do I actually make this part of like the function of what I'm doing with my work? Yeah. And the first thing I did was that became the name of the business. We switched the name of the business. It used to be Divine Strategy. Oh. Again, like all this like little sneaky hiding kind of stuff. Yeah. And so, so it was like a great reminder that you really have to be clear. And then the interesting thing, and I'm sure some of your clients might find this too, is like the more that you embrace and embody that, the better your experiences in life and your business are, because people are actually able to see you. They're getting the message that you're the person for them. Yeah,
and they're getting results too.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Now, I know you work with a lot of different people. Like you have in different industries. I work primarily with people who are in the psychic industry, that kind of thing. So have people been really open to the fact that you're like, hi, I'm the oracle?
That is a good question. I think that you and I have talked about this too. I think everybody has their own gifts.
Yep.
So the right people, the answer is yes. The right people are like definitely lean in. Yeah. And I love the people who are a little bit nervous, who've kind of been playing around the word terror-sided, like a little excited to like know more, who lean in. So I've worked with people who have never talked to a psychic, don't read tarot cards or don't even look at their horoscope.
Right.
And then I think what happens is they have that conversation with me first, and then I say what I do because I usually let them lead. Right. And then they're already like, oh, like energetically, they're just like, you're my person. And then like, okay, then I want to know more. Yeah. However, I've definitely come across people that are like, I don't know what that is, and I don't think I want to.
Yeah.
Because they sense like there might be something more in that for them.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely don't. I should say I definitely look for people that are really, it's all about where they are in their life and how, if the oracle feels like we can support that, then that's going to be the draw for me. I mean, for me, it's like I can really see like, oh, that's the person I need to, work with or speak to.
That's awesome.
Or I have a message for that person.
Right.
And that's usually just dragging me by the chest and
saying, give the message.
Go over here. Go over there and talk to that person. So,
That's cool.
But I work with people in all kinds of different walks of life. Mostly, though, now it is women that are founders and leaders in their industries that are actually looking to make a change. And I feel like that spiritual connection might be the missing key for them to, again, kind of open up the fullness of who they are towards that work.
Yeah. That's amazing. So let's talk about your psychic gifts a little bit. And I'm going to use the word psychic only because
it's good.
And I know I've said that before. That she's psychic. She knows it. So when you are, I want you to kind of fill people in. And I think I actually have real questions as well. When you are communicating, do you just communicate with one being? Like the oracle, or do you have multiple guides? Like, where do you get your information from?
Yeah, I like to say that the oracle is like the head of the crew. Like she's like my intermediary. There you go. And then I know I am aware of other guides around me or that come into the space with me when I'm working with clients. And I don't know if that's just a matter of me early on as a young person, kind of needing to protect myself. Like I said, I didn't know anybody. Yep. So I just kind of set my own ground rules. Yeah. Like we talked about this. I don't let anything, sit in my space, my body. I'm very clear that the oracle is an entity, not a her. But when I was young, I think it made it more comfortable for me to think of this like motherly figure.
Energy.
Energy.
And I would say the oracle does hold a feminine energy for sure.
Definitely feminine energy, but I don't think it's like a female.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of the distinction. But I do feel like for me, there's like a multitude of guides that I have access to.
Mm-hmm.
And she just happens to be the spokesperson. And then other times messages, I feel like they're just, I call it my holodeck.
Yeah.
Like everything's in front of me and I see things pop up and I can sense when things are not like coming from like directly through her verbally. And usually that's visual stuff for me.
Right. So you see and hear.
Yeah. If I see, hear, and I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the full gamut, depending on what, the situation is.
Yep.
And I think the other thing that for me, we call it the Oracle flush. Mm-hmm. When I have a download from her or somebody's talking.
Oh, I like that, the Oracle flush.
Yeah, that's what we call it. We call it like all of a sudden I'll just get this whoosh of like release of energy. And it's just like her acknowledgement of like, yeah, we're on the right track.
Yes.
And that's, I don't know how your readings go, but for me, that's like, okay, we're on the right track. And we just keep diving in and playing in that field and kind of chase that energy to where it's taking us. So yeah. And then of course I can engage with other people's guides. Had a client that showed up to my office and she was exhausted and she plopped herself down across me. This is back when I had a physical space. And I looked at her and I'm like, oh my God, this is so crowded in here. I had a tiny little office. I'm like, there's like 32 guides. You've like brought in this entire cast and crew. And she looks at me and she goes, really? Like she's known for a long time, but she didn't know how to, also didn't have anybody to support her.
Yeah.
To explain like, why are you carrying all these people around with you all day long? Yeah. Like that's, no wonder you're exhausted. You know, that's a lot of like, it's a lot of pushing and energy and messages. And so we worked through some of that. And that's not necessarily my genius, but I was like, yeah, we're not.
You have to help her.
We need to, we're going to need to break this down. I'm just going to step up to the plate and say, okay, let's talk about kind of corralling some of this for yourself because you really need to be able to function and live your life. And this is not I think you feel the same way. To me, it's always about support. Mm-hmm. Like whenever anybody asks about loved ones or past loved ones, what have you, I'm like, on the other side of all of this, the only thing they want is the best for us. Yes. Like they are only here to serve, guide, and protect us. That's it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Oh my gosh, I freaking love this. Now, do you think does your son have psychic abilities?
Yes. He's so funny. He doesn't want to.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's weird because, like I said, when I grew up, I think to myself, I would die if I could talk to my mom about like what I was experiencing. Yeah. So I just kind of seed it. I like just like leave the door open a lot for him and ask him like, how did you know that? I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then one time he said to me, when he was little, he was like probably like 7. I said, oh, that's really fascinating because he was telling me the whole thing. And I said, how did you know that? And he goes, Mom, it just came out of my brain. And so I'm like, okay, all right. Amazing. Yeah. So I just kind of keep having that conversation. I don't know. I feel like I want him to have his own development of that. Absolutely. And I want him to have the space to have it.
Right. And it to be unique.
Yeah. And to be his. Yeah. That part. Yeah. To be his. And it's not like you're not copying me or whatever. It's just, I want you to have a space where whatever version of that is yours. Yeah. That you have someone to talk to, that you can express it. Whatever way you want to.
I love it.
Yeah. But he's a teenager now, so it's just like, Mom, with the eye roll.
Yeah, there's like a period of time where it's just like, okay, they're so disconnected. They do not want anything to do with this. Yeah. He'll come back around.
Yeah, totally. He used to like want to lay with crystals all over him when he's little. Aww. And sometimes I'll go, you want a crystal night? And he's like, no, go away, Mom.
None of that anymore.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on here. I love connecting with other psychics. People who are doing this, who are following that calling from their guides, from the oracle, and knowing that they are here on purpose. Like, I love that. I love that it has come through for you and that you're sharing your gifts with the world. So can you want to share with the audience where they can connect with you if they want to work with you or learn more about you? You also have a show. So you want to share that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, absolutely. If you're looking to find out more information about what we do, and all the ways we serve people as women founders and entrepreneurs, you can always show up on oracleonpurpose.com. We also have the Oracle on Purpose podcast. Those are easy. And of course, I'm on all social media platforms as Oracle on Purpose.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Absolutely love it. Thank you guys for joining in on today's episode. And if this resonated with you, please be sure to check Lia out. And as always, there is something inside of you. You have this amazing, beautiful gift. Be sure to tap in, start unlocking your psychic abilities. If you're interested in learning more about how to unlock your psychic abilities, be sure to check out the link in the notes and join my psychic community. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time on The Psychic Within.